To jump straight back in, I last left off with Meerloo and his discussion of education and development from part 4 of his book on mental coercion, In Search of Defenses. From there, Meerloo turns to a discussion of courage. A man with deep self-knowledge, aware of his own inner conflicts, and aware, too, of what the enemy is trying to do to him, is prepared to meet and resist the attack. I interrogated many people who went through the tortures of Nazi prison and concentration camps. Some were ordinary folk with no political affiliations. Some were members of the resistance. A few were psychologists and psychoanalysts. Those who understood themselves, who were willing to accept danger and challenge, and who realized, even faintly, how bestial man can be, were able to stand the harrowing concentration camp experience. They were not defeated by their own innocent perplexity and lack of insight into themselves and others, but were protected by their knowledge and inquisitive alertness. There are other factors which play an important role too. My investigations have made it abundantly clear to me that those who can resist, who can maintain their strength under marginal circumstances, never feel that they are alone. As long as they can think of their loved ones at home, as long as they can look forward to seeing them again, as long as they know their family are faithfully waiting for them, they can maintain their strength and keep the unconscious drive to give in from taking over their lives. The love and affection we get and gather in our hearts is the greatest stimulus to endurance. Not only does it provide a goal toward which we can direct our lives, it also gives us an inner assurance and a sense of worth that make it possible for us to keep in check the self-destroying conflicts. What better way to create generations of individuals weak and susceptible to these attacks on the mind than to atomize the individual, as our culture currently does, separating him or her off from any sense of community, or making finding one's own family and friends an ever-increasing impossibility. By separating and pitting people against each other at every turn, across any and every divide, thus leaving the individual to withdraw further and further into themselves, and deeper into meaningless isolation. As Meerloo continues, the knowledge of loving and being loved is not limited to love of family or friends. People in whom a religious faith or a political conviction is a deeply rooted, living thing have this same sense of belonging, of being needed, of being loved. Their allegiance is to a whole group or to a set of ideals rather than to individuals. To such people, beliefs are real and concrete as people or objects. They provide a bulwark against loneliness, terror, fantasies conjured up by the unconscious, and the unleashing of deep-seated conflicts. A bulwark that is as strong as the memory of love. Yet, such mentally strong people form a minority in our conflict-ridden society. And what better way to make such a sense of belonging, of being needed, of being loved a thoroughly rotten bulwark than to water down such religious faith or political conviction to something inconsequential or otherwise mindlessly conformist. There is something in the glorious myth of strength and courage that confuses all of us. Physical strength is too frequently confused with spiritual strength. Bravery and heroism are, indeed, needed qualities in battle. Yet analysis of soldiers in combat shows that each one of them has to conduct a constant battle against his own fears. The brave are the ones who can check their fears, who can cope with the paralyzing fantasies that fear creates, and who can control the desire to regress into childish escapism. And as an aside, how is masculinity viewed in our culture? It is usually either viewed as toxic or as something purely physical, with the most physically fit considered, in animalistic terms, the alpha males. There is plenty to be said for physical fitness, but there is rarely any greater discussion about masculine courage. And feminine courage is too often defined by how it pushes back against the masculine and its supposed toxicity, aiding further the division between the sexes. But as Meerloo continues, no one can really tell how he will behave in times of danger. Each person will solve the frightening test that reality confronts him with in his own way. Several will accept the challenge and stand up to it. Some over-defensive, compulsive individuals may even welcome this burden as a test of their strength. Still others whose instability has deep roots in the past will unconsciously take advantage of a perilous situation to break down completely and let their tears and emotions go. Philosophy and psychology have made us aware of new challenges and new courage. Socrates, over 2,000 years ago, considered bravery a spiritual courage, which goes far beyond the courage of physical battle. A soldier can be aggressive and have contempt for death without being brave. His rashness can be a suicidal foolhardiness inspired by a collective élan. This may be the panicky courage of the unaware, primitive infant in us. There is also a spiritual bravery, a mental courage that goes beyond the self. It serves an idea. It asks not only what the price of life is, but also for what that price is being asked. It asks for a hyper-consciousness of the self as a thinking, spiritual being. Spiritual bravery is not found among the conformists, or among those who preach uniformity, or among those who plead for smooth social adjustment. It requires continual mental alertness and spiritual strength to resist the dragging current of conformist thought. Man has to be stronger than the mere will for self-protection and self-assertion. He has to be able to go beyond himself in the service of an idea, and has to be able to acknowledge loyally that he has been wrong when higher values are found. Man is not only a mass, a piece of kneaded dough, he is also a personality. He dares to confront the human masses as he confronts the entire world, as a thinking human being. Consciousness, alert awareness are themselves a form of courage, a lonely exploration and a confrontation of values. Such courage dares to break through old traditions, taboos, prejudices, and dares to doubt dogma. The heroes of the mind do not know the fanfare, the pathetic show, the pseudo-courage of exaltation and glory. These brave heroes fight their inner battle against rigidity, cowardice, and the wish to surrender conviction for the sake of ease. This courage is likely remaining awake when others want to soothe themselves with sleep and oblivion. Totalitarian ideology is able to blackmail man through his inner cowardice. It threatens him into surrendering his innermost convictions in exchange for glamour and acceptance, for hero worship, for honor and acknowledgement. Yet the true hero is true to his ideals. Only when people have learned to accept individual responsibility can the world be helped by the combined efforts of many individuals. Don't imitate the master. Don't merely identify with the leader, but if you do conform, accept his lead with the full recognition of your own responsibility. Such heroism of the spirit is only possible if you are the master of your own emotions and in full control of your aggressions. And ultimately, what I am trying to highlight here is the interplay that Meerloo offers between individual thought, personal responsibility, and having a sense of community, a sense of love, care, or rather, perhaps a sense of receiving loyalty. And from that point, being loyal to society or some other greater good, while still remaining loyal to the self. In our current state, we expect the individual to give of him or herself, sacrificing their very life force and time to perpetual education and dependence. In some concrete terms, this path might lead us to gain the qualifications we need for that corporate job, but such a career is likely unable to sustain us meaningfully, especially in a broken economy with the rising costs of living. And we are expected to follow such a path with these other things: community, love, and loyalty received, most usually absent. We are expected to make the sacrifices first, to first give our loyalty, eking out whatever meager existence we can manage along the way. In short, the reality is the facade we are asked to serve in our current culture rarely serves ourselves as individuals or even greater communities in any real way. And here is one more passage from Meerloo before I take an important step back for comparison. Moral culture begins and ends with the individual. Only the cult of individual freedom, individual possession, and individual creativity makes man willing to curb instinctual desires and to repress destructivity. Man is not only a social being. Somewhere away from the crowd and the noise, he has to come to grips with himself, God, and nature. In order to grow, he needs reserve and isolation and silence. In addition to his mechanical devices and machines, he needs to get back to nature, to camp out of doors by himself. Somewhere along the line, he has to be the maker of some of his own tools, as a shoemaker or a healer or a teacher. Without being thrown on his own and knowing loneliness, man is dwarfed. He is lost among the waves of overpowering human influence and a sea of coercive probabilities. But again, this should be paired with the following previous passage by the same author. There are other factors which play an important role too. My investigations have made it abundantly clear to me that those who can resist, who can maintain their strength under marginal circumstances, never feel that they are alone. As long as they can think of their loved ones at home, as long as they can look forward to seeing them again, as long as they know their families are faithfully waiting for them, they can maintain their strength and keep the unconscious drive to give in from taking over their lives. The love and affection we get and gather in our hearts is the greatest stimulus to endurance. Not only does it provide a goal toward which we can direct our lives, it also gives us an inner assurance and a sense of worth that makes it possible for us to keep in check the self-destroying conflicts. And herein lies the problem. The individual is too often perpetually disconnected from any proper sense of community or belonging, any true family or loved ones. As such, the call for constructive solitude simply will not and cannot work. And out of a useless loneliness, the individual, as Meerloo might say, is susceptible to menticide or brainwashing, fully ready to conform for the sake of inclusion. In short, our values are all backwards, and we have already long ago thrown ourselves onto a path of destruction. And I will leave it off here until next time. I hope to see you there.